and I'm recording as well. So the link looks like this. You can put your name on it and don't fill anything out just yet. I'll explain exactly what to do as we go. But if you want to start taking notes on here, feel free to like add some space for you to take notes. When that document forces you to make a copy, it is individualized, it's personalized just for you. So no one else will see what you type. So feel free to make it as personal as you want. And let's get started, ladies and gents. I'm so glad to have you guys here today. So this is, in fact, the Double Your Work in Half the Time presentation. I have that QR code there just in case someone, like this was essentially for the college presentations that I did so that people could get to know me. It's a link to my Instagram and stuff like that. But you guys do not need to concern yourself with that at all. It is just there for your viewing pleasure. And Reagan's joining. Awesome. Okay. So welcome to the Double Your Work in Half the Time webinar. As you guys know, I'm Megan, and I'm here to help you get your work done easier and faster. I want to teach you a system that helps you to be productive and focused with the time that you're spending working. And I want to give you more time outside of your work to actually live your life and just have more enjoyment in there. So tonight, you're probably hoping to get solutions for some time management. You're looking to use your time better and stay more focused throughout your workday. And after this, you're going to have a clear process that's going to save you time and energy and just give you like a more relaxed experience in your workday. So that's what we're going to do this tonight. Now, I think everyone on here, I know everyone on here, but if anyone watches this on YouTube later, my name is Megan, and I'm the founder of the Career Fulfillment Initiative. It is my 10-month coaching program. And I know that some of you guys are interested in joining, so I'll explain more about it at the end. But I am a certified causal life coach who helps people enjoy their careers, especially like high achievers. I help them to find a little bit of that work-life balance. So causal life coaching, just to give you a little explanation into what I do, I help people get to the root cause of their problems instead of solving for symptoms. So let's say you're trying to get up earlier. This is like my favorite example. So if you've been to my webinar before, sorry, I use this example a lot, but if you want to get up earlier and you set alarm, like a bunch of alarms, you drink a ton of water before you go to bed, and maybe you put your phone like across the room so it forces you to get up in the morning, and you're still having a lot of trouble getting up, that's where I come in as a life coach. So the real reason you're probably having difficulty, the cause, if you will, of why you're probably not getting up earlier than you want to is either because you might be catastrophizing about the next day and staying up really late because you're just worrying about the next day, or you might get up in the morning and feel like, man, I'm not doing really anything that's making me feel super fulfilled in my career, and gives you less motivation and drive to get to your place of work. So that's where I come in, and I help you either solve for the anxiety or the frustration in the workplace and fix that. So we are going to talk first about common problems that you might have when you're trying to manage your time. And then we're going to talk about how to actually schedule your time with the 3-step process that I use. It is such a great way to do things. I've been doing this for the past 3 years, and the steps and skills I'm teaching you tonight is the only way that I was really able to start my job or continue my job teaching and start my coaching business while I was teaching full time. So like having 2 full-time jobs at once. I also at one point had 5 jobs, which is a lot of different careers that I had going on. So this was how I helped manage all of those different things. And it's how I've been really effective as a business owner, trying to make a lot of time for getting everything done that needs to be done for a business. Because if you guys don't realize this, to go from a very structured school workday like I used to have to completely unstructured time that I had to make for myself, it was a big shift. And so this is how I get my work done within that unstructured environment. So I'm going to teach you all 3 of those tools, and then we are going to apply it. So within that worksheet, we're actually going to go through and I'm going to talk you through each of those steps, and you'll start to put things from that worksheet, from the Google document, onto your calendar. So that will be, I want you to come away from this with tangible things that you've actually accomplished and ways for you to get more work done. And then we'll do Q&A. Sound like a plan? Let's do it. Okay, so what is the problem that most people have with time management? A lot of us, when we are thinking about doing something like managing our time, creating a schedule, it is very common to wait until the deadline to start doing a task. I actually did this very presentation for seniors that were in elementary education at NC State. And so I looked up some statistics. I was like, I wonder what percentage of college students procrastinate. Guess what percentage of people in college procrastinate? It is 85 to 93% of college students procrastinate. And I'm guessing that probably trickles into the work world too. So it's very normal for people to procrastinate. It's actually abnormal for you to get things done ahead of time. So that's what I'm going to teach you tonight, is how to get things done a little by little ahead of time. The next thing that we do is we make things really, really confusing for ourselves. So we will have a huge project to work on, like for instance, making this presentation. And I used to, before I learned these tools, I would give myself this huge project, like make presentation. And guess what? It would never get done. It would keep getting pushed to the end of my to-do list every single time because it was too big of a project for my brain to comprehend and actually accomplish anything in the moment. The next thing that we do, and I'm guilty of this, I used to do this all the time, is write to-do lists. When because it felt productive to me. So I would write to-do lists every single day. I'd be like, here are the things that I need to do, and cross it off one by one. And I'll explain why in a minute, but that actually keeps you from being productive during the day. And it doesn't give you ample time to get the things that are on your to-do list actually finished. The next thing is that things are really time consuming. So by reprioritizing either a to-do list or changing your schedule every single day, it takes way too much of your time. There's this thing that we call decision fatigue. So it's when you make too many decisions and your brain literally just gets exhausted. So I like to make all my decisions at once, and it makes it far more effective for my brain to actually function. And then the last thing is it can be really overwhelming. If I had just for an entire day, I'm going to create a presentation, it comes back to that huge project to work on. It is extremely overwhelming. I don't know where to start. And then I start doubting myself, and I give myself far more mental drama than I need to. Now, we do this for a good reason. It's not crazy that we do all those things. The reason why we want to write a to-do list is because we want to feel productive. It feels like you're being organized. It feels like you're getting everything ready. So that's not a bad thing. There's just a better way. The other thing is that your brain, which is human, it is hardwired for negativity. So when we have evolved from cave people back in the day, what happened is in order to survive, we had to think really negatively. So if there was like a rustle in the bushes that was happening, the people who were thinking positively, like, oh, maybe it's just like a little bunny, or maybe it's no big deal, and it was a tiger, they got wiped out. So everyone that is a human being right now, our brains have evolved to think negatively as a form of physical protection. It's actually just a maladaptation now. So that just means like it's an adaptation that our brains have created that just doesn't serve us anymore. So something that I have my clients do, for every one negative thought, it takes 5 positive thoughts to replace it. So if you give your brain a lot of mental drama, like I'll never be able to do this is going to be really hard as you're doing a project, it's going to be a lot harder for you to focus. But just know that it's normal. It's normal if you think negatively. I had a couple of the seniors as well. They were like, oh my gosh, it's normal that I'm like really thinking negatively. I'm like, yes, it just means you're a human Nothing has gone wrong. The next thing is you know that you want to get a project done. That like for me, making this presentation, I was like, okay, I know I need to do this and I want to include ample time. So that's why before I knew these tools, I would schedule an entire day to get this work done. And then the last thing is that if we at least put it on the to-do list, if I'm like, ooh, grading papers, I'm like, if I just put it on that to-do list, eventually it would happen. But the problem is I wouldn't actually do what was on my to-do list until it was absolutely necessary. And I've heard a lot of people say, ooh, I have to wait until the deadline. For me, I only do my best work when I'm cramming. And that might be true right now because that's all you've trained yourself to. But you can retrain your brain to do better without cramming. And it's going to lead to less stress in the workplace. And it's going to lead to less stress overall. Because like, if you think about like not only just the mental and emotional side of stress that sucks, but it actually causes a physical toll as well. So we want to keep the least stressful workplace that we possibly can. Now, here is the reasoning why your brain fights doing things that are larger tasks. It fights you when you're reprioritizing every day, and it's fighting you as you do your to-do list. Here's why. Your brain functions from the motivational triad, which means that its purpose is to do three things: conserve energy, make sure that you aren't expending too much energy; to seek pleasure, making sure you're doing things that feel good; and avoid pain. So what happens is if you are giving yourself tasks that are too large, if you aren't putting things on your schedule, if you aren't getting your tasks into smaller bite-sized chunks. I was like, break it apart into bite-sized chunks. Whew, my brain. But if you don't do that, your brain is going to fight you the entire way. Now you might be like, okay, well, I can muscle through my subconscious, like totally fine. I can figure it out. I'll push through. You can, but the problem with that is that your brain's subconscious programming runs the show about 80% of the time. So if you try and muscle your way through, it's you against you, and you'll lose every single time. Because 80%, you're going to lose to your subconscious far more than you will win to your subconscious. So what we have to do, and the reason why the 3 tools I'm going to teach you work and save you time and actually double the productivity you're able to do, is it teaches you that the way that you're getting your tasks done, it actually makes it easier. You are conserving energy as you plan this way. So that's why it works. It's working with your subconscious instead of against it. It also, by making the tasks smaller, it makes it more fun. You're more willing to do things that are smaller instead of something that's large and overwhelming. And the last thing, it's avoiding pain. It's avoiding the discomfort of having to do something huge all at once by doing things that are more manageable and broken down into smaller pieces. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to hack your subconscious tonight. And this is like, again, one of the many things that I love, but this is the reason why I became a coach is because I'm just fascinated by how our brains work. And I'm like, how can I make my brain work in the best way I possibly can? And this is by far my favorite thing to teach people. So I'm really glad you guys are here tonight. Now, if we've heard about all the ways that don't work, here are the things that do work. You have to first evaluate. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But we do that. Like right now, again, I'm not perfect. I'm learning as I go. However, my schedule right now says read at night before bed. And I have never read at night before I go to bed. It never works. So I need to learn from the past. And if reading is truly a priority for me, what I have to do is I have to change the time if it's not working for me currently. The next thing that we need to do is simplify. I've harped on this a lot tonight, but you can't just have a huge project. You have to break it down into smaller tasks. The next thing is you have to calendar. It's not that I don't love a good to-do list, but instead of writing a to-do list daily, you're going to write a to-do list weekly. And you're going to take that to-do list and you're going to put it on your calendar in a process I'm going to teach you. But that is the most effective way so that you have time to evaluate and learn, but also so you don't get into that decision fatigue, like I mentioned before, because you're not making decisions. What am I going to do today over and over and over again? And the last thing, that the reason why this works is you'll have a very clear start and end point with defined outcomes for each time period. So instead of being like grading, that would be something I would just put on my to-do list. I'd be like, grading. Yes, I would love to do that. But it wasn't defined. I didn't say what I was actually going to accomplish by the time I finished that time block. So instead of having something like grading that's super vague, what I did instead is I learned how to say like science projects into PowerSchool, which was our report card system. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight in the WRIC in half the time process. There are 3 steps to this, a tool called Monday Hour 1. And as the name implies, it means that you are going to do this on the first hour of your work week. And you're going to make that to-do list all in 1 hour and put it on your calendar. So it's the first step. The second step is to take down a project and break it down into results. So we're going to take it and put it into manageable chunks. And then the last step is to do Friday hour done. Friday hour done, again, similar to Monday hour 1, is where you, at the last hour of your work week, evaluate the week before. You're going to reflect on everything that you did. You're going to, again, use that 5-to-1 ratio of helping your subconscious and making sure it doesn't get too negative so you don't spiral out of control. And you're going to be able to change what isn't working. So let's start with Monday hour 1. I do this. I've done this every single week for the past 3 years of my life, and it has gotten better and better each time. But it is one of the most important things that I prioritize every single week. It's making my to-do list for the week and putting it on my calendar. On the first category, you will see yourself. That is actually the first thing that I want you to put on your calendar. Now, you might be thinking, Megan, oh my gosh, this is such a typical life coach thing. I don't want to put myself on my calendar. That's like self-care. And like, I'm not interested in that. And trust me, people, I feel you. I feel like for a long time, my motto was, and many of you guys know me from like high school or from college, it was like, you can sleep when you're dead. I was like, I will do all of the things. I will sign up for every single club. I will be in every sport. I will do everything. And I did that for a really long time until it caught up to me. So I mentioned that like working 5 jobs thing a little earlier. I was doing that. It was my 3rd year of teaching. And I started feeling kind of sick. And I was like, no, I'm not going to take a day off. That's not for me. I'm not going to take any time off because first off, writing a sub plan that would take a long time and I didn't have time to do that. And the second reason was I was like, I don't want to burden anyone. I don't want to burden a teacher assistant. If I'm feeling sick, she would have to cover my class. I didn't want to get a substitute. So I was like, you know what? I'll just push through. I can make it. And what happened was the kids had gone to Spanish, and I remember I was putting something in a student's backpack, and I remember like everything just went black. And I woke up on the floor of my classroom in a puddle of sweat. And I was like, oh my God, I think I just passed out. And I was laying there. Thank God no kids were in the room. And I called my teammate, Lisa, and I was like, hey, so don't panic. We are good. However, I am passed out on the classroom floor. She was like, what? And so she came in. I was like, yeah, like, I think I'm fine, but like, I might need to go to the doctor. And so another teacher, Laura, had to drive me to the urgent care, and another 2 TAs had to cover both of our classes because both of us were out. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is the main reason why I didn't really care about myself and I pushed myself to the last thing I was meant to do every week is because I didn't want to burden people. That was like my biggest thing. It's like, I never want to burden someone with my own stuff. I want to make sure we're good. However, what I found is that by prioritizing myself last, not only did I burden the 3 people, the teacher assistants and my teammate that had to drive me to the urgent care, but then I was also out. I had pneumonia, y'all. So I literally was out for like another half of a week. So it just, and then people had to cover my sub plans. Like it was a mess. So that's why you need to put yourself first. Even if you have this mindset like, oh, I don't want to put myself on my calendar, you must put yourself first. Now, the results that you have for yourself can vary. It can be something like sleep. Have you ever intentionally actually decided when you want to go to bed and what time you want to wake up? That's what you need to put on your calendar when you're going to get up and start your day. This could also be something like exercising. If that's something that works for you and makes you feel better during the day, it's important for you to put that on your calendar. The next thing could be something like meals. For me, if I do not put, and it happens like I would say at least once a month still, even though I've been doing this for 3 years, but if I don't put lunch on my calendar, I will get to like 3 o'clock in my day, have meetings scheduled back to back. And I will be like, I'm so hungry. Oh, I didn't eat lunch. I just didn't eat today. That's why. And guess what? No one wants to be coached by a hangry Megan, and no one wants to be coached or have any interaction with you in your work life if you are hangry too. So make sure you prioritize those things. Now, the thing that I have on here is thought work. This is like an active meditation that I do every single day. And it's just me taking notes of my brain and making sure that I am showing up as my best self every day, mentally and emotionally. So that's what I do every day, every weekday from 7 to 7:30. And I've actually started doing it on the weekends too, because I found that when I don't have a routine, my brain also goes wild. So I do this every day. So that is the first category. And start thinking about, for each of these categories, yourself, relationships, meetings, and miscellaneous. Your goal by the end of this presentation is to have just one thing for each of these 4 categories, the top 4, put onto your calendar by the end of tonight. So just start like marinating on that. Don't write anything down just yet, but just start thinking about it. The next category are relationships. I actually mentioned this in my story today, but it's my little brother Chris's birthday on Friday, and he is my best friend. We talk all the time, but it's been a little harder to stay in contact with him because he moved to Boston. So we both were like, we need to prioritize our relationship. And it's funny because so Chris and I actually went to the same, I convinced him to go to my life coach for like 6 months, and it was awesome. So he learned how to do Monday Hour One with her too. So we both have it on our calendars, which is great. And we talk every Tuesday today from 11:15 to 12. And that's just like something that we need to prioritize. Now, the reason why relationships are number 2 on your list, and you might be thinking, Megan, you're a career coach. I thought we were going to be talking about career and like all my work and all those things that I have to do. The reason those things are the top 2 things on your list is because they are typically, without you realizing it, the 2 things that typically go to the bottom of your list. And here's how I feel about relationships. I genuinely believe that they are the essence of this beautiful life that we get to live as humans. Now, another quick story time. A friend of ours, he works for a dental office in the area, and the dentist that he works for is in his 70s. And he's about to retire, and he's so excited. He has all these plans to travel. I think he had a cruise booked. I think that's why this came up. And his wife fell and she broke her hip. And their plans to go on this cruise were canceled. And now her mobility is pretty poor and they can't travel like they wanted to. And so our friend came in to see the dentist, and he was sitting in his chair just looking really quiet and kind of like down. And our friend was like, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? And he was like, yeah, I thought I had all this time to travel and I thought I had all of these things that I could do. And I guess I missed it, meaning he missed his life. And that's why I have these two things at the top. They're the most important things. When you look back on your life, you won't remember the posts that you did. You won't remember how how big of a project that you did, but you'll remember laughing with your mom over a cup of coffee. And you'll remember that time when you got a chance to like just take care of yourself and go on a trip maybe for yourself and prioritizing that. Those are the things that are most important in life. So that's why they're number one and number two on the list. The next thing, so that was like bringing it down, making it real. As of course, I'm a life coach first. We got to talk about life. But now to move into the career side of things, let's talk about that. Because you have meetings that are typically weekly, monthly. Tonight, to come to this webinar, this is a meeting. This is something that you had scheduled that you really don't have to think too much about before you come. And it's something that you just need to show up for. I'm not talking about the prep before a meeting. This is purely just you showing up physically and being here. Another example of meetings could be doctor's appointments or things like that that you need to get done. So make sure that they are on your list. For me, I coach someone every Monday from 8 to 8:45. And the important thing about meetings that I want to hammer home for you, another one of my clients, she did that reel, Emily, some of you guys know her. And one of the things that we both found to be the most effective part about the meetings is transition time. Now, I mentioned tonight that we're going to be doubling your work in half the time. The biggest part about timing is making sure that you are including that transition time. So if you have to be, for me, it's like I have to be on my coaching session at 8. I give myself 15 minutes before and after every call to transition. And there are two reasons for that. Physically, I have about 5 documents at least for each coaching call that I use for every client. So I have to get those documents pulled up and I have to be thinking, okay, so physically, there are things that I need to do. I have to get the Zoom meeting pulled up and everything like that. Then mentally, in order for your brain to be fully present and engaged in a task, it takes 15 minutes to refocus from one task to another. They said like the most skilled people can mentally transition with about like 5 minutes, but on average, it's 15 or more. So what you think about, maybe when you're putting on your to-do list, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I've got like all of these things to do. I've got like, and they'll only take 5 minutes. So what you don't account for is the time for you to either physically like move things or for you to mentally transition. And that's what you need to start accounting for in your calendar. Another thing to save you money in the long run, it is, of course, unprofessional to show up to something that is a meeting of yours that's late, right? So when I was a teacher, I knew that we had specials from 1:30 to, or from 1 to 1:30 every single day. So I would schedule my parent teacher conferences for 1 o'clock. But I didn't factor in that I had to get the kids to the trailer and back up to my classroom. So there were times before I knew this where I would have parents that would be in my classroom like, where's the teacher? And I told them like that I was transitioning them, but that's not the way you want to show up. And if you are doing, like for me, it was a salary job, but if you're doing something where you are reliant on your professionalism, like coaching, to make sure that you are showing up in your best way, you got to make sure you're on time. And this helps with that. The next thing on the list are miscellaneous things. So this weekend, when I made this presentation, I had to pack to go to Asheville. And these are the things that we always forget, like doing the dishes, doing the laundry. For me, I have this from, I was like trying to get my passport done. I needed to renew my passport. And it was something that was just hanging out on my to-do list every single week. So what I had to do is put renew passport on my calendar. I had to put pack for Asheville on my calendar, because if I didn't do that, it would come time for us to leave and I would be panic packing the night before. My passport just wouldn't get done. And those are the kind of things that you need to schedule. And so those are the 4 categories. The top 4 are things that I want you to actually think about, something, a result that you want to create this week. So this week in February, I want you to put one of these things, one thing from each category, actually onto your calendar. Now, something that takes a little bit more time that you can't do while I'm talking, and it takes a little bit more time to think about, is planning for your results. So your results are large projects that you need to accomplish over a period of time. In order to have this presentation completed, yes, I did have to have the presentation made, but I also had to write the script for this and practice it. I had to create every single email that you guys have received. I had to take the wording from the email and change it into posts. I had to post the week prior for it. I had to create a Facebook event. I created a LinkedIn event. I had to, like, there were so many steps to making this webinar possible. Creating the Zoom link, making sure all my links worked. When last night, one of them didn't work. So you got to make sure you're planning to double check your work. And that is the next biggest category that truly is going to have you getting your work done in half the time. So for me, because I had already written and I'd prioritized previously for my presentation, I'd already written the script. Making this presentation only took me an hour. It really didn't take that long because I had prioritized the correct way. So here is the next piece. It is breaking down your results. So I give the example of grading here, and so this is more for people who have a specific job where you need to have a project produced. This is for you. And then I'm going to do another example for the small business owners that have to kind of create your own projects. So within this, if I were to think about the result of getting my grading finished, there were ways that I could break it down into smaller chunks that would make me more effective at it. So one of the things that I would do is I would break down my grading by subject. So I would, instead of just be like grading, I'd be like grading, writing graded, science graded, math graded, making sure that I had time for each subject. So and a thing I was telling one of my clients is maybe we could make Mondays a day for grading writing. Tuesdays might be a day for grading science. Thursdays might be a great day for grading math. Making sure that you've got each day, the more you can get a protocol and a procedure in place, the faster and more effective your work will be. So that is how I would grade. Then I had to think about my weekdays, and I had to think about and the reason why it's about double your work in half the time, there is so much time you guys are, and myself included before I knew this, that I was wasting throughout the day because I didn't have things scheduled. So this, for me, like I mentioned before, this is when my students were in specials. And I would just like kind of come back from specials and be like, I don't know what to do. So I would just kind of like putz around my classroom. Oh, I need to like put this in Johnny's backpack. Oh, I need to like, oh yeah, I need to change the whiteboard. But I never had a specific result in mind. And because of that, that was wasted time. And you would be shocked as soon as you start doing this. I guarantee you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I have so many more hours in the day that I didn't even realize that I had. So you've got to find the chunks in your day that you have that are dead time and use that time to get things done. So for this, I knew I was kind of tired by the time the kids transitioned to specials. So I didn't want to do something that required me to like do a lot of thought, like creating one of my PowerPoints for the day, making sure that like I had responded to students writing report card comments. Those were things that required a lot of thought. So this is something that didn't require a lot of thought. It was looking at the conventions for my students for something like their persuasive writing. So literally when I would make my calendar when I was a teacher, I would put conventions for persuasive writing graded with checklist. Yeah, it's a mouthful, but it's clear about the objective that would be completed when I finish that time period. So, and the reason why it's in past tense, it's graded, not grading, is it shows that by the time 1:30 came around and I had to pick up my students, all of that writing was done for sure, guaranteed, because I put it in a clear, measurable outcome and a clear, measurable result. And when I was doing that, the conventions, why I'm saying it wasn't a lot of thought, it would be like, okay, capitalization, check, finger spacing, check, punctuation, check. And that's what I would do as I would go through their writing. The next thing was that I would grade their science projects. It's pretty cool. Like nowadays, it's so different than when we were in school. We do so much technology. So I would have students go around with iPads and they would take videos of each other's science projects that we would create in the classroom. And that was put on this website called Seesaw. So just to clarify what that is, but I would go through and I would watch each of their videos on Seesaw and I would click check to submit it and be like, okay, this can go to their parents. And I would write a comment and be like, okay, this is what we need to do. And then last but not least, so this was during my specials. This was during my Spanish time. And then this on Thursdays, I would have a parent come in and I'd be like, hey, can you watch the kids for lunch? That would be really great so I can get some work done. And this was a time period that I knew was really, was kind of up for grabs. And I knew it was going to be something I needed to do really quick. So this, because parents usually haven't been teachers before, and so they don't know how to take a kid through the lunch line to have the kids wipe up from their tables. So I'd have to explain all of that, then run up to the classroom, eat my lunch while simultaneously doing a task. But it could be done. And it really made my life a lot easier so I could do work outside of, or so I could live outside of school. So I would just literally take my grade book and put it into PowerSchool during that lunch period. So I want you guys to be thinking about what kind of dead time do you have during the day that you know that you could get some work done. That's what goes in the results. Now, this is something that's really aggressive that I shared with some people. But so that's for like, if you have a clear defined project, if you're like, okay, I know that my boss needs me to get me this presentation by our meeting at 9 a.m. on Friday, that's how you break down a result like that. You think about all of the things that you would need to do to get that presentation made, write the intro, write the script, make sure you have your sources, contact people who need to give you certain information and data to go into that presentation. That's what you need to put as your results in the result breakdown part. Now, for those of us that have small businesses, which there are a couple of us on the call, there is no guide to posting on social media. There is no guide to doing pretty much anything for a small business. And that's why, again, it can sometimes feel like you're like building the plane as you fly it. Like, it's like, I feel like this seems good. And so for all the things that don't have a guide, don't have a clear defined outcome, you have to create the outcome yourself. So for me, I knew I needed to post. I wanted to post for every workday. So Monday through Friday, I do a post a day. And I've actually started doing 2 posts a day. So it's a little aggressive, but it's good. Now, for me, I know I need to make a process to make that easier, because I know if I were like post 5 times a day, again, it would be like putzing around my classroom. I would be wasting time because I would be trying to use my brain to make decisions instead of my brain to make content, if that makes sense. And that's why the key to this webinar is you really will double your work in half the time, because you're not going to waste time making decisions. You won't be in mental drama. You won't be in overwhelm. You're like, oh, here's the task. I just need to do this task, do it. So for me, every week, I have a different topic, which is part of the pillars of my business. So this week, you guys might notice I'm talking about having a long-term plan and I'm talking about goals. So every one of my 5 posts this week is about goals. Next week will be all about burnout. The week after will be about confidence. The week after that, and this is why I don't want you to waste time as well, is going to be about making your 10-year plan. And the reason, I could have just done these willy-nilly, but I specifically knew that I needed to talk about having your 10-year plan, because guess what is happening on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd of March? Potentially. I'm doing a webinar just like this on making your 10-year plan. So if I need to advertise, I need to know that ahead of time. I can't just be like, oh, I'm going to do a webinar tomorrow, because I need to make sure I'm advertising, I'm contacting people, I'm giving them the link, I'm seeding it throughout the stories that I'm doing. And if I do all the posts about it the week before, then people know about it the week of. And then I'll be talking about work-life balance. So that, just having this process makes things so much easier for me. The next thing is I have the style of it, because I'm kind of crazy about my feed. I'm like, okay, I'm going to have this be like a Canva picture. This is going to be a photo. This is going to be a quote. This is going to be another photo or a picture of me from the reel. And this is going to be another new client Canva. So I literally plan it out like that to the T. I'm like, okay, this is exactly what I want my feed to look like. The next thing is every Monday, I do a training. Every Tuesday, I do problem solving and I talk about a problem and how to fix it. Usually on Wednesdays, I do value and lessons. I just switched it with personal stories. So tomorrow you guys will see a story about me doing my marathon. And then the last thing is I talk about the results of my clients, just to share that like people who work with me, that they do really great. So that's what I do. So, oh, I'm sorry, forgot to warn you. If you couldn't tell, I love to be aggressively organized because it makes my brain so much easier to deal with. And it just makes my life so much easier. So my calendar is very aggressive. And I just say that because I've told people that before and they like gasp and they're like, oh, this is terrible. It's like so much and it's very overwhelming. But a lot of the things that are on this calendar that I'm about to show you are not like, it's not just work related. Again, life is more than half of this. So here is my schedule. And it is aggressive. This is from, I think the first week in February. And as you can see, like I stated before, the presentation I made on Sunday. But the first thing I do is I make sure I'm taking care of myself. So in the morning, I work out, and that's something that just helps me get my endorphins going. It helps me get ready for the day. So that's in blue. I also had something I had to pick up some medication, made sure that was on my calendar. And like I told you, eat lunch, because that would get missed if I didn't actually put it on my calendar. So all those things are on my calendar. The second thing are those relationships. So like I mentioned, Chris and I, we talk every Tuesday. I talk with my mom on Mondays, and I got lunch with a friend from this Winston-Salem or North Carolina entrepreneurial group. I lunch with a friend there. And you'll see I'm including Drive to High Point. That was on my calendar, that transition time, like I mentioned. Drive to Asheville, also in the transition time, making sure that I have that on my calendar. Actually, from this is the weekend we went to Galentine's. So for the entrepreneurial group, I knew that I had to drive a certain way to get there. So I had made sure that I got ready for the event. I was driving there and I called my Grammy because it was her birthday. So I like have things like that on my calendar. And then I have go to the gala, come back to the gala. And then on Monday, I went to a friend's house. So that's on here too. So don't freak out and be like, oh my gosh, she has to put like everything on the calendar. I do, but it's everything in my whole life, not just for work. The next thing were those meetings. So everything that's in gray, these gray meetings right here, are my coaching calls. These are just the things that I do once a week. And I make sure that I have that on there with the links for the people who I coach with. In red, I have consult calls, because those are things for me. I want to make sure that I am like prepared for it. They're not something that's typical. So I put them in red. And then I like to be really prepared and do a really good job for every single consult I do. And I like to prepare for everything that I do. So I prepare an hour before every single consult that I do, and I evaluate it usually for an hour afterwards to make sure that I'm like, okay, how could I have done this better? What had worked, what didn't work, and what could I do differently for next time? I do that for everything that I do. I did that for this Zoom presentation. I did it for the one last night, and I'm going to do it for tonight's. I want to make sure that everything that I deliver in my business is to my standard, which is really freaking high. I want to make sure I'm like, did they feel like they understand how to manage their time from this webinar? If not, what could I do to make it better this time? Like yesterday, I added this. I was like, they need to see how I actually broke down these results. So every time I do a presentation, I want to make it better and better and better. And then the other things are in green, like this is for the life coach school. That was just something I needed to put myself in the database. Things like that, just little things like return the Haberdash clothes, little things that I need to make sure I do. Now, you might see some really large chunks on here. Notes of the pre-event videos, make 3-year plan, fill out advanced selling, 4 consultations evaluated. Guess what didn't get done this week? The large chunks. It was way too big. And it was like way too late at night too. Like my brain is dead by the end of the day. So I realized that these things did not get done and did not work for sure. So not going to beat myself up over it. I just have to evaluate it, which is the last part of the 3 steps to managing your time. This, like I said, is called Friday Hour Done, and it happens on the last hour of your work week. So you want to make sure that you are evaluating, seeing what worked, what didn't work yet, and what can you do differently. So as you'll see on your worksheet, the first thing that I have people do, and I have my clients do this every week, is write 5 things they've accomplished. And even if you're like, I didn't do anything this week, it's like, okay, did you get more sleep than you did before? You for sure, did you eat? Did you eat your meals when you had planned on it? Even if it's small, reminding your brain that you are accomplishing things changes your self-concept or the way that you view yourself to think of yourself as an accomplished person. So we want to continue doing that, and it will build and foster your self-concept as you go. Then you need to think about what worked. What are things that are working and going well for you? So for me, one of the things that worked is working out in the morning. Since I started going to Core Power right after I got out of college, I would always do the 6 a.m. yoga classes. I know that working out in the mornings works for me. However, when I got this more free schedule and I had a lot of unscheduled time, I was like, let's try working out in the afternoon. If you don't write down what's working, you might change it. And guess what didn't work out? Me working in the afternoon. Never works out. So you need to keep doing, and that's why I said, what do I need to keep in my week every single week? You have to make sure that you include that. The next thing is what didn't work yet? Why didn't you create more? And again, the power of yet is making sure that like, yeah, it didn't work yet. No big deal. So for me, I'm like, okay, what didn't work yet? These huge chunks definitely didn't work yet. So what can I do differently? What can I learn from what didn't work? I knew that there were 7 pre-event videos. I had taken notes on 3 of the pre-event videos. So I needed to write, instead of doing a huge chunk, I was like, oh, I just need to chunk out how long each video is and put that in my calendar instead of putting this whole big thing. And guess what? The next week, I wrote that in my evaluation. I was like, yep, that was too big of a chunk of time. I didn't get my work done. And guess what? I got it done the next week because I put the little chunks in. So that's what you need to do. Now, like I said before, I am a life coach first and a career coach second, because I think that as important and imperative as your contribution is to the world, I also want to make sure that you are living a life that you're proud of. And so when I created my coaching program, the reason why I named it the Career Fulfillment Initiative is because this business is so much more than a business to me. It's about leaving a legacy of making people's lives better. And I hope tonight, just by you being here, that your life has gotten a little bit better just because you decided to take this hour. So when I was thinking about my program, I was like, fulfillment is a really big promise. So what can I guarantee for them? And I knew that if I worked one-on-one with someone for 10 months, I would give them 24/7 access to me. And I would make sure that I would teach them how to manage their time. Yes, that is part of my coaching program. I have all my clients do Monday hour 1. All of them have a schedule like that. But the next thing is I would make sure that they overcame burnout. I would make sure that they get their needs met, because so that they aren't feeling burnt out and stressed at work. that they're able to create confidence, especially if you're a small business owner or you're applying for jobs. You need to have confidence. And so that's what I teach my clients. I also show them how to have work-life balance. Like you saw, there was a lot of pink and a lot of different colors on my calendar because, again, I think it's all about creating the life that you want and the legacy you want to leave behind. And the last thing is creating a 10-year plan. I don't want people to feel like they leave my program after 10 months and they're like, that was it. I want them to look back in February of 2023 or 2032 and be like, I remember back in February of 2022 when I worked with Megan, and that was the point when everything changed. That was when I decided to leave this job, start this business, raise this family. And now I'm actually living the life that I planned with her, and it made a lasting impact. So that's what I do. So if you want to work with me in the Career Fulfillment Initiative, of course, I would love to work with you. I do a free 1-hour consult, and we just plan out the 10 months of your life and the next 10 months of your life. And I'll teach you 3 new coaching skills on that call and give you an opportunity to work together. You never have to work together with me, but it is a really fun choice, and it can make your life and business a whole lot easier and career easier. So feel free to message me if you want to do a consult, or it's at the bottom link of my emails that I send usually. So it should be in the link that you guys had on this email. So feel free to reach out if you want to do a consult. But in the meantime, let's apply this knowledge, what you've learned tonight. So we're going to take, I'm literally going to give you 60 seconds, and I want you to take all, and I'm going to start an alarm. I want you to take the top 4 categories in that worksheet: self-care, relationships, meetings, and miscellaneous. And I just want you to put one thing in each category. And I want you to determine how much time you're going to take for that. So if it's lunch, for self-care, put lunch every day at 12 to 12:30. Put that on this worksheet. And then as I'm answering the questions and answers, we're going to do, I want you to actually put it on your calendar. So you guys ready? On your mark, get set. I'm going to stop talking, play some tunes. I'm going to check and make sure that link works. Awesome. Take about 10 more seconds. All right. Okay. So before we get into questions, I realized that last night I did not do the giveaway like I said I would. So I'm really, really sorry about that. But I'm going to do the giveaway now. So we'll click to spin, and I'm going to select 2 winners, and I'll send them the link if they're not on the call. Ooh, Nitin, you won! So I will send you a link for a free coaching session. And then who's next? Ooh, and it's Fatima. She's on the call. Woo! So I will contact them and make sure they get that link. But this has been so much fun. I'm so, so glad that you guys came. What? Thank you so much for taking this hour out of your evening. I truly value your time, and that's why it takes so long to plan it. And I want to make sure that it's awesome for you. So if you have any feedback or questions and you don't feel comfortable sharing it with the group, here's my email, meganwingcoaching@gmail.com. If you feel free to email me, my phone number is there. I'll text you. Whatever you need, I'm happy to answer your questions. But if you feel brave, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask any questions you might have.
I have a question, Megan.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, what advice do you have for someone who finds scheduling everything very stressful?
Yeah. So it's definitely a practice to make it less stressful. I'm curious as to what part of the scheduling do you feel the most stressed about?
So I'm a very spontaneous person, so having everything mapped on a calendar, even if it's routine, I find it very stressful. I want it to still feel like it's spontaneous. So if you have any advice for that, definitely.
Yeah. So I include, and this is a poor example of a calendar, but I usually include a lot more of this white time. So I include a lot of blank times for when I need to move things around. That also helps for me when I have things like, okay, I really didn't need to take notes of the pre-event videos, but if something comes up that's really important, or just like I want to hang out with people, I make sure that I've got time for that in my calendar. So everything on here, and that's why I like a Google Calendar instead of a paper to pencil one for two reasons. I can move this stuff around. So if something comes up, I'm like, okay, cool. Like today, I was like, maybe I'll go to the cat cafe. I was like, I kind of feel like doing that. And so I include time for that on my schedule as well. And then the other thing is with this, if someone is like, oh, can you do something that's more spontaneous? You can check and make sure that you're still like reliably showing up for them. Like, oh, I would love to go and hang out with you, but let me double check and make sure I'm not double booking myself. Because I know that was something that would happen to me a lot. So it's helpful to have it on here, but don't feel pressure to make it happen exactly as it is, and know that you can include as much free time as you want to give you that spontaneous feel, but also know that the structure can help give you more freedom. Because that was the thing that I found. I was like, I don't want to have this structure because I want to be free to do the things I want to do. But I found by making sure I had everything that bare minimum needed to be done on my calendar, then I was like, oh, I've got so much more free time. I can do this, I can do that. And that will hopefully add to the spontaneity, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Of course, I'm so glad you came. It's good to see you. I
Well, hear me.
hear you, yes. Good question. I know that was a lot of information. If you guys, seriously, like I mentioned before, if you have questions, I'm also, I want to make sure that you guys have these tools forever. Like I literally like have a copy of something that looks very similar to this. It's not as pretty. I need to update mine to look pretty like yours. But I have set this exact worksheet and I copy and paste it every single week and make sure that I've got my new calendar every week. So if you go to my Wix, my website, it'll be like double your work in half the time. That little pop-up will come up. Yay, it's me. But there's also a printable if you're more of a pencil to paper kind of gal or guy, and you want to have things like that. Here it is. There's also the editable Google document and this whole presentation. So as I edit it, probably after tonight, of course. But as I edit this PowerPoint, you will get the most updated version and everything on here. So you can access this at any time. Yeah. That's it. Thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Megan. You have a good night.
You too. I'll contact you about that coaching session. Okay.
All right. Thanks. Have a
Cheers.
good night. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yep, bye.
Bye, everybody.
Oh.
Feel free to unmute yourself and say bye if you want. Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Hey, Devin.
Yeah. I don't necessarily have a question right now, but I just wanted to say that I thought the presentation was very organized and very professional. So I at least wanted to say that.
Thank you so much. That means so much. As you can tell, I'm kind of crazy about it, but I put a lot of time into this. So I'm really glad that it helped you.
Yeah, it definitely did. It looks very professional and very detailed.
Oh, good. Well, I'm so glad to hear it. Let me know if you have any questions later. You've got my number, you've got my email and everything like that. So feel free to reach out.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Bye, friend. All right, Amy, it's so good to see you too. I miss you. I miss Michael. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, he was like, he's like, that's Miss Wing. Can I say hey?
Yes, he
I'm
can
like,
say hey.
no.
I miss him
Michael.
so much. Please tell him I was like talking about grading and stuff. And I was like, one of my former parents is on this call right now.
Say hey.
Hey,
Hi, Michael. It's so good to see you. I miss
Hi.
you so much.